This is Rob Morse of the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. I'm reminding you that this podcast is one of the many good ones on the Self-Defense Radio Network. Check out the other podcasts at selfdefenseradio.net.
Welcome to Unload and Show Clear, the podcast about all things IDPA. And now, here's your host, the high-functioning marksman, Lloyd Bailey.
Welcome to another episode of Unload and Show Clear. This is a podcast about the men and women who compete in IDPA, International Defensive Pistol Association. Now, I've been attending IDPA matches since 2011, and over the years, I've met some really amazing people thanks to this sport. Ignore all the colorful jerseys and the sponsor logos, and underneath you're going to find everyday men and women who volunteer their time and their effort and spend their hard-earned dollars on travel, match fees, and gear to make this sport great. And today you're going to meet another one of these awesome people. But first, I want to thank today's sponsor. All right, before we get started, I want to tell you about GlockTriggers.com. Recently, at a sanctioned IDPA match, I went to the line, I went to load and make ready, and the little dingus thing flew out of my trigger. Just completely flew out of the gun. So I had to scramble and shoot the stage with a backup gun. So now I'm in the market for a new trigger. And guess what I found? GlockTriggers.com. Love them or hate them, the one thing that you know about Glock pistols is their reliability. They're out of the box, to the range, to the match, absolutely reliable. And it's what makes them popular with competitors like myself, law enforcement, military, and responsible citizens. But the one drawback is that stock trigger. Well, Jeff Wilson and the people at Glock Triggers, they asked themselves, how can we make this better? But how can we do it while maintaining reliability? Using stock parts as their foundation, they refine the interaction of the metal parts in the trigger kit to give you smoother take-up, a cleaner break, and reduced over-travel without sacrificing safety or reliability. That's important. Recommended and used by people like Bob Vogel, Travis Haley, and Ken Hackathorn. Glock Triggers custom trigger kits come with a lifetime warranty and a 30-day satisfaction guarantee. Check out the Edge, the Vogel, the Skimmer, the Guardian, or the Hackathorn trigger system and use the promo code from this podcast, USC20, and save 20% off your entire order. GlockTriggers.com, the highest quality drop-in trigger system for your Glock. Our special guest today is Nicky Carter from Saltillo, Mississippi. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lord. Glad to be here.
Well, for those who don't know you, tell us a little about yourself and what you do for a living there in Saltillo.
Well, I retired year before last, worked for the state for 36 years, so I had enough of that. So now I'm a range rat. I try to stay on the range as much as I can and ramble and pillage through the community, that kind of thing.
36 years working for the state. What kind of work did you do?
I was in the maintenance for them. My training background, trade school, was air conditioning, but I done a lot of that for the state through the years, and I worked also in the shop. I've done a lot of welding, that type of thing for them, some machine work, a little bit of everything. And
I'm guessing grew up in Mississippi, so around guns most of your life, or was that something that you did you develop that that interest as an adult, or were you introduced to guns as a kid?
I was introduced very young. All of our family had dad, uncles, cousins. Everybody had guns. We grew up with them. And my first background with them was quail hunting. I done that till I was probably mid-20s, I guess. It was just quail hunting exclusively. I guess I was in probably a senior in high school before I ever deer hunted, but quail hunting. So I'm a shotgun guy from the start, and then that was my first background with guns. But yes, all my life.
So how were you introduced to handguns?
Well, all the relatives had handguns, and I'd bought a few through the years just to plink with, but I was real big in the martial arts for 28 years as a whole. And so my lower back and my old wore out knees forced me out of that. And then I wanted to stay in that kind of thing as far as home protection, protecting home and family. And I got into handguns that way. And I wanted a way to, advance that and advance my skills, taking training and that kind of thing. And then that led to IDPA. That was 12 years ago.
How did you hear about IDPA?
Well, some of my first karate instructor, he was a big handgun guy, and he dabbled with USPSA and IPSC and IDPA. So I heard about it through him years before I actually got into it. But so that's how I ended up hearing about it. It just wasn't real big around here, enough for me to hear about it, or I'd have been in it years before then, I do believe.
So was he the one that took you to a match, or what was? How did you get to that first match, and what do you remember of that day?
Yeah, he had a little setup around his home there, and he would practice, and we ended up over there one day practicing and putting up some targets and getting a timer out. And I said, well, this could be a lot of fun. And he said, well, you need to find an IDPA match. So I got with Dede, and I said, yeah, let's get some more magazines and a lot of bullets, and let's see if we can. And we found a match probably 50 minutes from here, and I met some guys that had been in IDPA from day one. Actually, some of their IDPA numbers is start with a 0, and so they brought us along, and still are, as a matter of fact.
Very cool. What do you remember about the first match that you actually went to?
Well, I remember I needed a lot of work with a handgun. Definitely. Yeah, it was good. A lot of his friends and his friends and some past people that he shot with handguns years before then. They just all kind of met up. He just had a makeshift match, but it was a lot of fun, and we learned that's what we wanted to do, And then,
Right.
but the first official match we went to at that club that was affiliated with IDPA back then. It's not any longer. It was. I don't remember a lot. I remember the gun jamming a lot. I think that was human error, most of it. I never shot around walls and barrels and up under stuff, over stuff, and that kind of tails off on things. But it was a lot of fun.
And that got you hooked. And then how long before you were, practicing, trying to get better, and then actually signing up for a sanctioned match?
Yeah, that was probably a year later. We joined IDPA, kept going to those matches there and other places that we found out. And then the following year, we went to Tennessee to our first sanctioned match. That was in '07, I believe it was. And that was a big eye-opener, a lot of fun. I knew I'd really enjoy those. Definitely wanted to keep doing that. And we have ever since.
And what you're now safety officer, chief safety officer, instructor, area coordinator. What made you get that involved with the sport? How did all that come about?
Well, we wanted to help, so it was a natural thing to want to be a safety officer. So we started out with that, took the safety officer course, and started officiating, helping with all the matches, and then the safety officer instructor in this area, he kind of retired. His health got bad, and he had to back off. So we didn't have a safety officer instructor for a couple of years. So I put in for that with my area coordinator and went through that. So then I started teaching the classes and teaching SOs, and it went from there. And then when the area coordinator, he was out of Memphis at that time, Larry Hill, he decided to give it up. And so I put in for that and got lucky again. That was about 5 or 6 years ago. So I had started out with West Tennessee and Mississippi, and it's branched out now, Louisiana, all of Tennessee, and then Alabama, Georgia, and Florida.
Your territory doubled recently. Give people, for those who aren't familiar, give people an idea of what the responsibilities of an area coordinator are and how you approach it.
Okay, I kind of approach it like I'm here to help. I want to be available for anybody. Text, email, phone calls, anytime. Help. I want to help the members in these states. I want to help the SOIs, the SOs, match directors, club contacts, anything they need. I want to be able to help. That's my big thing. I want to help. But mostly responsibilities is just to go between headquarters and all the members. And so I relate things back and forth a whole lot. Headquarters is, it's not a 20-person staff. It's an office
Right.
that carries on. So it's just a lot of things that have to be passed back and forth to get answers and new rule changes, that kind of thing. So that's usually the biggest part of my responsibility is just helping people.
Do you get out and visit some of the clubs in your territory? Do you go to sanctioned matches and sort of help them with stage design or approving stages and that kind of stuff? What is it all sort of remote contact, or do you get out and do kind of face-to-face stuff?
Well, both. There's 3 clubs in my area here that I try to get to on a monthly basis, quarterly anyway, in Mississippi. But outside of that, I try to go to the sanctioned matches that are Tennessee, Mississippi, and Louisiana especially. I would go to every one of those sanctioned matches. Now that I've added the other 3 states, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, I have state coordinators down there in those states that they do the legwork for me. They're always at those matches, and because the area coordinator or a designee from him has to be at the sanctioned matches. So they do that. So I do both. I try to make, I think it's 7 or 8 sanctioned matches we go to every year, this in this area. And that's about all I have time for, actually.
I started to say the 3 states that you were originally assigned that's a pretty big territory. You had Alabama, Georgia, and Florida with all the matches that they run, and that's quite a lot to handle for one person. Talk about your home club, where you are the match director. Give a shout out to your home club for us.
Okay, Ridge Crossing Shooting Club. It's we're about an hour and a half southeast of Memphis, northeast Mississippi. Good little club. It monthly matches, and I do all the setup for those monthly matches. I usually have 6 courses of fire, match direct that, and it's a lot of fun. We have 25 to 35 shooters on those monthly matches. It's a good place to shoot, good place to just go and plank. A lot of good props. Really like it there.
Getting to your personal shooting career, what division did you start out in? Where are you now? What was the first division you started out in? What gun, and what else have you tried, and what do you like now?
That's really changed through the years. Started out marksman. I shot SSP from the start for probably 6 or 7 years. That's all I shot was just SSP division. I shot the Glock 34, and I just wore it out. I guess I thought that was the only one, So I finally got bumped to expert in that after a couple of years, and then I switched to CDP. I played with it some, sharpshooter in that. So SSP, I'm expert, sharpshooter in CDP and ESP. So I spent more time with SSP. I guess that's why I went to expert in it and not the rest of them. But I'm starting to branch out now. I really have moved on gun wise. I'm a 1911 nut, so I definitely shoot those 99% of the time.
So what made you pick up the Glock? Just, as a 1911 fan, of course, there's all the Glock versus 1911 debate that everybody loves. What made you pick up the Glock and shoot it exclusively for so long before you got back to the gun that you actually love so much?
That's a good question. I think at the time, I would go to these matches and 70% of the guns would be Glocks. And I don't know if that's persuaded me to start out that way or not, but I did have a Glock before then. So, for home protection, that kind of thing, just keeping in the vehicle, riding around. So, yeah, I had shot a lot of 1911s growing up that my uncles had and cousins and things, but didn't really own one. So everybody, I guess at the matches, just persuaded me that everybody was shooting Glocks, so I better get one.
So when you first started out, what kind of matches, what kind of stuff, thinking of it as a shooter and not as a match director, but as a shooter, what kind of stages do you like to shoot? What do you, when you open the match book and you look at a stage and you say, ooh, that looks really fun. Is it movers? Is it lots of non-threats and tight shots? Is it stages that give you lots of options and you got to think through and plan? Is it stuff that makes you move a lot? Or, what is it that as a shooter, Nicky Carter really enjoys to shoot?
Well, for me, stage-wise, if it's one to say, oh, I like this, especially the sanctioned match, I like it close and personal. The target's real close and the speed, really fast on the trigger. Target's close together, just like you're at a card game and there's 8 people around the table. It's something real close and personal and do everything hard and fast. That's my kind of stage.
Seems like it's always card game stages with Mississippi SOs that I've run across. Wonder what that's all about.
Well, that's hard to say.
So when you're designing a stage, as the match director, what do you try to bring to a stage? What is your philosophy in building out stages for a match?
Yeah, as match director, I tried to always keep it fresh and different ideas outside of what I like to shoot. So I try to do different, I try to vary the distances, and I look at it when I'm building the stages, especially on the ground, when I'm down there doing it, is look at it like different divisions, 8+1 or 10+1 or the revolvers, and try to make it interesting and for all the divisions.
Gotcha. So you walk through it with an eye towards, all right, I'm walking through this, I'm looking it over as if I had 6 rounds in the gun. Nope, this isn't going to work. Let's change this. And so you're tweaking, and then you walk through it again with it, thinking as a shooter from another division, and you just keep tweaking until you find a balance.
Yes, that's right. For example, if I go through a short stage and it's 11 rounds, and I'm thinking, no, I want everybody to at least reload and start using their skills. So I'll vary things or add a target or download the start, where we can all use. I want everybody to use their skills because that's what makes us better.
Yep, very good. So if you could think from over all these years, either a stage that you've shot or stage that you've designed yourself, what's a good example of a stage or a memory from a particular stage that you really enjoyed that you could share with us, either one that you shot yourself or one that you designed for one of your matches?
Oh, that's many thousands of stages later.
Do you have one that you shot that you look back and you say, wow, that was really cool? Something that somebody else created and you really enjoyed shooting?
I have one that really sticks out. It was in Paris, Tennessee, sanctioned match. It was probably 8-9 years ago now. The stage, you were sitting in a chair and there were 3 targets right in front of you, just 4 or 5 foot, right? You could almost reach out and touch them. So you had to engage those 3 tactical sequence at that time. And then there were some more targets further out, and there was a drop turner pretty far down range, 15 yards or so. Well, the buzzer goes off. I draw my gun. I shoot the tactical sequence on those 3, and the SO stops me. One of my rounds had went through, and it had hit just exactly right, and it tripped the drop turner downrange. And what's the luck, So I get ready to go again. Buzzer goes off. This is number 2 now. Buzzer goes off. I tactical sequence, same way. Again, he stops me. One of my rounds hit just right and tripped that drop turner 15 yards downrange. Well, they go down and look at it and reset it and tweak on it a little bit. And so I get up there the 3rd time, and I looked at him and I said, I don't want to shoot this again. I want this to be it. He said, I think we've have it fixed. Buzzer goes off. I shoot tactical sequence. He stops me again. It tripped it again. Now I don't know how you couldn't have took aim and shot 3 times and tripped that thing, but that was really strange. But the 4th time was a charm. I think they put a barrel up or something where a round couldn't get to it, but that was I'll never forget that.
That's, yep. Every now and then there are those moments where, you couldn't do it, like you say, you couldn't do it if you were aiming at it, but that's funny. I'm going to ask, I have this one question that I ask everybody, and it's the numbers are getting better, but most of the answers are very mundane. So if you don't have an interesting answer, it's perfectly okay. But every now and then I get an answer that's interesting and insightful. So I thought I would throw this at you. Aside from the usual stuff that everybody takes in their range bag, right? The magazines and the gun and the holsters and ear and eye protection. Is there something that you always make sure that you take with you to a match in your range bag and you just cannot go to a match without? And why?
Yes, there is. You've probably got this answer before, but for me, it's ibuprofen. I keep a bottle in there, my old karate knees and shoulders. If it's a long sanctioned match, I'm going to need some.
Yep, I'm with you. I understand completely.
Everything
you can
else
tell by it's pretty standard.
Yeah, everything else is pretty standard.
Yep. I think my shooting buddy calls it vitamin A for Advil because I learned that just from watching myself on video that about 3/4 of the way through the match, I can tell when the knees and the back are starting to bother me because in the video, the posture is completely different. I'm not moving with the same, and if I don't have my ibuprofen or something like it, I'm in the same boat. I understand completely. Is there a match each year that you guys go to that you guys work, you and your wife, Dede, work matches a lot? Do you ever go and just shoot for the fun of it, or are you always out working matches and shooting?
We tried the last 3 years to try to back off and just be shooters because over the years, yes, we worked them all. Every time we shot one, we worked it. Probably 7-8 years. So we decided, well, let's be a shooter, and I got the area coordinator job. So I said, yeah, let's just not work as many and go that route. So we tried to do that, and but she still works a few. All the ones that we go to now, I have to be there as an official. So area coordinator, so I don't work them. I just walk around and look important. But she still works them, and so just the local ones now is basically about all I work. Just our local matches.
Right. As a shooter, what are some matches that you could tell us about that you do anything you can do not to miss? You try to make those matches every year.
Oh yes, there's which the Casa match in Arkansas. We love going over there shooting with those guys, which we're friends with all of them now, of course. But we always put that one on the schedule. we like the Texas matches. We don't go to them every year, but usually CASA and the Mississippi state match or regional match, that's the first thing we pencil in, of course. And I think there's there's two this year in Tennessee, so we pencil both of them in. Just as shooters, Oak Ridge, that's out of Knoxville. That's been the state match for Tennessee for a couple of 3 years, and that's just a great match. It's one to really put on the calendar. So usually those three: Mississippi, the state match in Tennessee, and then CASA in Arkansas. We do go to the Backstoppers up there with Mark Godey and them. Probably every other year or every 3 years, we've always went up there. That is a great match.
I'm looking forward to it. Hasn't hit the calendar yet, but I'm looking forward to that one this year. I have not gotten a chance to shoot it. It usually seems to coincide with one of the Texas matches, so I'm hoping they'll schedule it at a time I can get to it this year. As we kind of wind things down, what is it you've been doing this for, what did you say, something like 12 years now?
Yep.
What keeps you doing it? What is it about IDPA that you love so much that you devote the kind of time and energy to it? What is it about this sport as opposed to the other shooting sports that you love so much?
Well, I guess foremost is out. From the start, we wanted something that would advance our skills and be more realistic to what you might run in, out there in the street, riding around every day, or defending your home. And IDPA is just, of all the things we have seen, is just the best for that, and keeping your skills up. So that was number one for us, was something that would keep our skills up, that was fun to do. And second, it's all the people, the friends. That's definitely high on the list.
Absolutely. Well, Nicky, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show, and thank you for everything you do for the sport. Looking forward to having an opportunity to see you and Dede on the range in the near future.
Yes, I'll be glad to see you and shoot with you anytime. And if you get out this way, just give me a holler.
I'll do it. Thanks, sir.
You're welcome.
All right, that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank our guest for coming on the show and our sponsors for making all of this possible. Take a moment, if you would, to check out the website, check out our show notes at unloadpodcast.com. We've got lots of interviews with more amazing guests like the one you heard today. Join our Facebook group at unloadpodcast.com/Facebook for all the latest updates and to connect with other fans of the show. And if you'd like to support the show, we sure would appreciate it. Consider becoming a patron at unloadpodcast.com/extra. I've got some full-length interviews and special content available there exclusively for patrons as well. And if you know somebody or you yourself would make an interesting guest for a future episode of Unload and Show Clear, please contact me at lloyd@unloadpodcast.com or click on the contact page on the website and send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Tune in again next time for another episode of Unload and Show Clear.